Hey, Assalamualaikum guys. Sorry for the delay firstly. I really apologize for that. But welcome you guys to our coffee and chat session for we're the GMSA. And we gather here today basically just to support each other. That's our bottom line. And share our views on different topics. As Muslims today, we often complain about non-Muslims taking up Islamic topics and talking about them in academia, non-academia as well. But complaining is not going to solve anything, so it's important for us to take action. Now, what action can we take as people here gathered here? So the best thing we can do right now is at least give a platform to one of us who is a Muslim and who obviously is concerned about Islamic topics and would like to share his views to maybe strengthen a good notion or correct a bad one. So I'd like to start today's presentation session by inviting one of our board members and a friend, Mazhar Syed, to start this, hopefully a presentation series on different topics to at least share our views and gather some positive or negative or constructive feedback to hopefully help us in future endeavors. So, first speaker, as I said, is Mazhar Syed. He's a political science grad student who's focusing on UN and global policy studies. And today he's going to cover women's rights, if I'm not wrong. So, I give the podium to Mazhar Syed.
Well, as Taha mentioned, my name is Mazhar Syed, and I'm a master's student in political science, concentration in United Nations and global policy studies, with a focus in counterterrorism and conflict resolution. And my presentation for today is about women's rights and focusing on the economic empowerment and also importance of education. It's a small section of my paper that I'm working on in my class called Women, Islam and Development, which in the bigger paper it focuses on the effects of Taliban pre-Soviet war invasion, and also during Taliban and also after 2003 post-Taliban era in Afghanistan, and how that affected the women's rights issues in economically, socially, politically, culturally, and how Western intervention also affected through war and through other means of access to education for women and many aspects. So there's negative and positive in my paper, but this presentation I'm focusing mostly on education and the importance of education of women. So when I'm talking about women's rights, I'm also talking about human rights. Women are human, everything is about women's rights. Every situation, for example, if you're talking about war, that the first people that are affected by war are women and daughters and children. So now, I would like, in my presentation, I'm going to mention two examples, Sweden and Bangladesh, and compare the two to make my point on the importance of education for boys and girls. So, the importance of education. For example, if you have a girl who are denied education in their land, for example, if it's a war-torn country such as Afghanistan, for example, post-2003, when the U.S. came in, even though they were in the rural areas, in the tribal areas, they were denied education, and they were unable to politically participate. They were stuck at homes, and the U.S. said they came in and invaded Afghanistan saying, "Oh, we will go and save the woman." But what happened is, culturally, like for example, the head covering and also the face covering, the niqab, is a cultural and religious and traditional practice of of the women there. So the surprise of the American forces when they invaded and got rid of the Taliban, freedom, democracy, they were surprised that the women were not uncovering their head or their face, because like they were oppressed before, and now they're free. Why are they not uncovering? So education is important in that it empowers the women and daughters to change and make social change, to have the skills, knowledge, and education to be able to move up and progress in socioeconomic levels and to improve their lives and earn better wages, be able to participate in political participation as they are aware of the issues in business and economic ways to tackle business and trade, being able to be socially engaged in dialogue with other people. So that's how they improve their political participation and economic participation through education. It all begins with education, especially during wartime or civil war time, where the cycle of violence is the cycle of violence hinges upon education of women. So the daughters, they stay and grow up uneducated, unable to participate politically, unable to economically improve themselves, sustain themselves independently, and be able to make their own choices, be able to improve their life and wages. So now I'm going to talk about Sweden and Bangladesh. Sweden is the top 15 economic equality because of the practices that they started as a developed after the Industrial Revolution and how they put education as a priority. But also that brought the political participation and the social changes from that. For example, they have paternity and maternity leave through the tax system, but that's a different story. And that paternity and maternity leave brings both the father and the mother the ability to work together in raising their newborn child. So that gives the society a different aspect, different outlook of gender roles within home and within society, being able to make them, being able to treat them with equity. There's a difference between equality and equity, and that's not. I'm not going to go into that in this talk right now. And the ability to work together and to that has reduced violence against women, and that has also brought women improvement on their economic independency, where they are able to choose for themselves on how they spend their money and who they marry, when they marry, and when they have kids. In Sweden, the birth rate is lower because the women get married later in life, have children and family later in life. So therefore, both the father and the mother can work together. Now I'm going to shift that. So the importance of education is shown in Sweden, and now I'm going to go to Bangladesh, which is the last 15 on the list, on the bottom list of the economic equality. And Bangladesh, when it began and established, it was a poor, undeveloped country. Henry Kissinger called it the trash or something. I forgot what he said about Bangladesh, but he said something along the lines. But as globalization began, as people began to the global market trade, sweatshops began to come in Bangladesh. Then women were able to get out of the agricultural land, farming, and were in the sweatshops. Now these sweatshops, they don't have good conditions. There's threat of violence of their male supervisors. There's horrible condition, horrible wages, but it gives them the economic independency and more choices than they had before. It's not utopia, but they're able to use that money to get education, to educate their daughters, their sons, and be able to have more choices than they had previously as an agricultural based economy. So they were able to move along. So but a lot of work has to be done in the social aspect and the social improvements and the ability, and then for them to just beginning to get education and more choices is important. So that's why I'm talking about violence against women as well. For example, in Afghanistan, the access to education is, as I mentioned, the access to education is important. For example, during Taliban or before 2003, there were a lot of, when they had co-ed schools, there was a threat for the male teachers to sexually abuse or physically abuse girls. So the parents would take away the girls and bring them home and take them out of school because of the threat, the threat of the girls being abused. So the solution to that problem is right now being implemented in Afghanistan, which is to have all girls schools with women teachers. This is a temporary solution. Now, if you look at it from our world point of view, we'll see, oh, there's segregation, this is inequality, injustice, but it's providing women to get an education, so there's no excuses. Providing them to get the knowledge base that is needed to get jobs, to be able to participate politically, economically, socially, and also have cultural change and social change through empowerment. So you have violence against women as an example that hinders education. There's also psychological violence. For example, even like for attaining education, you're going to have violence against women as they're told verbally not to attain some professions, or for example, in America, they're paid less than 75 cents than their male counterpart with the same skills and the same qualifications, the same job, and that's psychological violence because that puts them down economically and as well. For example, I also use the psychological data research. This is generalization, so correlation doesn't mean causation, but I want to mention that when women go into a male-dominated field or profession, they feel they're more likely to be shunned or decreased by their co-workers, while if a man goes into a woman-dominated career or profession, he's more promoted and more able to do this. What? Okay, so now I'm talking about all the problems of education and how can social change happen, but now I want to also talk about solutions. Okay? For example, Wednesday Day. Okay, let me tell you about Wednesday Day. It's an acronym, okay, called Women Empowering Daughters, Nationally Educating Sons. Daughters are as amazing as you. So there's three parts of this day. Women empowering daughters. You could be a daughter and a woman, right? Daughters implying that there's girls and they're not mothers. Or a woman. Actually, they're not women. So, women empowering daughters essentially can mean empowering yourself or empowering others, or empowering yourself to empower others, or also empowering others to empower yourself. For example, in Bangladesh, the woman who works in a sweatshop in horrible conditions is getting paid some amount, the lower wages. She's using that lower wages to empower and educate her daughter, who have more opportunities than she ever had from it. So that's changing society, and that's very important for them to empower. So they're empowering themselves by also getting education, because some of the younger females in Bangladesh in sweatshops are getting money, are earning the small money, and they're able to go to school and get education and have more economic independence. And the second part is nationally educating sons, which is to make sure the males and the females are working together in order to make the gender equality happen. You can't just work on just have females. I'm talking about gender equality, working on it with no males supporting them, and that's another important aspect. The third aspect is daughters are amazing as you, is that the social and cultural and political and the economic equality of both daughters and you, whoever that you is, meaning a woman or a female or a male. Because a female can also participate in endorsing or in reinforcing of degrading women. For example, in Africa, you have FGMs, and you have like women cutters who cut gender mutations, right? So they're accomplices in that act. Now that's not to say that's also, so that's Wednesday, but also the fact that the fact that you only think about, say, I talked about Bangladesh, right, as part of that, and Afghanistan, but you also have to look at other countries. For example, I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'm going to end the talk. Is which country is as these statistics attributed to, where 1 in 4 women are victims of intimate partner or violence, and 1 in 7 men are victims of intimate partner violence, and 13% women and 35% men are victims of physical violence. Which country do you think that is?
USA.
Pakistan.
USA.
Who's it?
USA.
Yes, United States of America.
Yes.
United States of America is where 1 in 4 women are victims of intimate partner violence, and 1 in 7 are victims of intimate partner violence. 13% women and 35% men are victims of physical violence, which these violences lead to other consequences, right? PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other forms. And that hinges education. That also hinges empowerment and social change and cultural change. So that's why everybody needs to have like the human rights aspect and changing and educating themselves. So that was my that's part of my research.
Questions.
Okay, thanks, Mazhar, for a enlightening, short, yet inclusive presentation, I guess. So right now, I'd just like to open it to you guys. If you guys have any questions, we have a couple of minutes. If you want to ask anything about this topic to Mazhar or anyone of us.
Yeah, I have a question about his speech.
About his speech? All right. You
Oh,
need a
can I
mic?
ask about his speech or no?
A serious question, if not, don't ask.
Okay, please put him on the mic.
All right. You need it?
No, him. So yeah, you talked about, making justice for women and empowering women. But do you think the source of empowering women is going to, for the third world countries you were talking about, is it going to come from the West, from the U.S., or is it going to come from within? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. I think it's coming from within, right? So it's about empowering yourself. It's not like West. For example, when I say about Afghanistan, I'm talking about the 2003, right? Post 2003, where they're going in as saying, oh, we're gonna go save the women. They're being oppressed, because over there, those people oppress women and they don't allow them to go and get access to education or schools in the urban area, because there were women doctors, right, to treat other women like for OB/GYN and other issues. But for example, when the West is doing it unwillingly with the within support, it's imperialism. It's not. It's
But what about globalization? Globalization means that our influence is spreading there, so they can learn about women's rights from us. In Saudi Arabia, Iran or Pakistan, well, Iran is a third world country, but you get what I'm trying to say. Whatever have you, like, the other countries can learn from the U.S. and the West. Like, feminist
Yeah, so globalization, so the word globalization is not accurate, it's actually Americanization. So the economic, for example, the IMF, the World Bank, and the IMF came out from the Bretton Woods Conference, where the US dollar became the dominant currency, put the US dollar into the world. So it's mostly economic globalization, which is in the IMF the only veto power is US. So they have the power to control the economic globally. So it's mostly Americanization and doing it. For example, you can't go to a country and say, wear Western clothes, wear American clothes, stop wearing the headscarves or the traditional clothing and wear Western clothing, because that's the cultural occupation. When you have that kind of occupation and degradation of the people, they're not going to be accepting of the changes that are progressive.
I get your point. What about like not stuff like that, like honor killings, stuff like that?
Honor killings, okay. This is through education. For example, honor killings, which is in the media portrayed mostly on Islam or in the Middle East, Muslim majority countries, right? But honor killings came out from Europe, from French Napoleon law, where you had, huh? Yes, it did. Yeah, listen, it came from French when you had, because at their time they had the law where you could kill somebody out of passionate killing, where like, oh, a guy came and saw a woman sleeping with another guy, and then he got upset and he killed his wife. That came from that person would be acquitted and found innocent of the crime because of passionate killing. So that came from Napoleon French law. There's no concept of honor killing in Islam, and that's why the political, historical issues need to be dealt with and used as an educational way to have the cultural, social change. Yes.
Brother Mazhar, you correctly point out that there is no Islamic concept of the so-called honor killing. However, can you provide any documentation that the crime of passion in Napoleonic law was influenced on, let's say, Yazidis or other cultures for the statistical majority representation of honor killings?
I don't have that specific information, but I know that it came from Napoleon law. For example, in British India, when the British came to India, in this India area, they saw the Muslim woman, having more rights than the woman in Britain, right? So they looked at them and say, oh, they're uncivilized because the women are more open. They're more open in society. There are people getting away with murder because in Islam, in the Sharia law, it's that you have the family forgiving or getting the blood money or asking for death. And you know, Islam, in the Quran and the law, it says that forgiving is the best. So they used to forgive or ask for blood money, and the murderer would get away. He would be staying alive. He wouldn't go to jail. So the British law, and they codified. They strictly codified the law on British law. So this changed the way how law was perceived. It was not like a mufti or hadi under the khalifa or the ruler. It was mufti or the hadi appointed by the government, like modern time the state appointed to become the employers of the state, serving the leader rather than Islam. So that's like the lawyers, like in the United States, the lawyers, you are studying law in the state law, the government law, the federal law.
So you would see the Mohammedan courts, as they would call it, for example, British India, as that conduit where they
Yeah, so that colonial mindset and the codification of law, of using the state and with the integration has a factor in the mindset of how women are treated and how, like, you know, staying at home and stuff like that. Any other questions or comments? concerns?